followed closely by Wayne Train 94 and Simple Markers. Let's see if Deplorable Apple can maintain that lead, or if we'll see some shuffling in the top three. Oh, look at that, another thrilling battle for position 1. And here we go again, another intense tussle for position 2. Oh, and surprise, surprise, yet another gripping battle for position 3. How original. Wow, another overtaking frenzy. Wayne Train 94 steams ahead to take the lead from Deplorable Apple. MD 162 secures the third position by passing Simple Markers. Romance makes a move to surpass Amundsen and claims the 7th spot. It looks like Deplorable Apple and MD 162 are having a thrilling battle for the second position. Meanwhile, El Geef and Romance are duking it out for the 6th spot. And KL 87 is making moves, now sitting in 11th place after overtaking Huggard 03. Romance and El Geef are having an exhilarating duel for the 6th position. Meanwhile, Nukenbochem has advanced to 19th place, successfully overtaking Hot Wheels Kid 01. Now, Nukenbochem and Hot Wheels Kid 01 are locked in a heated contest for the 19th spot. Nukenbochem is piloting the SSC Ultimate Aero TT, while Hot Wheels Kid 01 is behind the wheel of a Holden Tirana A9X. Deplorable Apple and MD 162 are in a thrilling fight for second place. Romance and El Geef are locked in a battle for the 6th position. Twix 560 and Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 seem to be having a heated competition for 9th place. Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 moves up to P9, passing Twix 560. Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 and Twix 560 are now in a thrilling battle for P9. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely contesting for P30, with their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge, respectively. Oh, the excitement is palpable as Hot Wheels Kid 01 and John 073 go head-to-head for the prestigious 20th position. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling duel for the coveted 30th spot. The tension is simply unbearable. Nukenbochem has accomplished a stunning feat, soaring to P18 by outmaneuvering Okayaki 3. Meanwhile, Kamikaze 38 has outpaced John 073 and now sits at P21. The intense showdown between Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ for P30 continues, with the Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge battling it out. Oh wow, what an epic battle for 6th place between Romance and El Geef. Meanwhile, Hot Wheels Kid 01 and Kamikaze 38 are having a thrilling duel for the 20th position. And towards the back, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a heated tussle for 30th place. This is racing at its finest. Deplorable Apple and MD 162 are in a battle for P2. Romance and El Geef are in a battle for P6. Amundsen and Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 are in a battle for P8. Deplorable Apple and MD 162 are having a thrilling battle for second place. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad are neck and neck in a fierce fight for 30th place. Quite the spectacle. Car MD 162 has now advanced to the 2nd position, successfully overtaking Deplorable Apple. Meanwhile, there's an intense battle for the 30th position between Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Wow, what an intense battle for 30th place. We've got Everlasting Apex in the Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge fighting it out. This is the stuff legends are made of. Deplorable Apple snatching P2 from MD 162. Oh, the thrill. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are really giving us a show in their fight for P30. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are really fighting it out for that 30th place. Such a thrilling battle between a Peugeot 207 GTI and an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. So much excitement. A thrilling battle for positions 8 and 30 is ongoing. Absolutely riveting stuff. Deplorable Apple and MD 162 are having a thrilling duel for P2. Meanwhile, Aminson and Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 are having a nail-biting battle for P8. Then there's Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ fighting it out for P30, with the Peugeot 207 GTI challenging the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Al Geef makes a move up to P6, overtaking Aminson. Aminson retaliates, moving up to P7 by overtaking Twix 560. Meanwhile, Kale 87 gains ground, climbing to P10, after overtaking Ricky Former Liprojectum 2. I see Hugred03 making a thrilling attempt to catch up with Ricky Former Liprojectum 2, reducing the gap by 3.8. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely battling it out for the 30th position, with vastly different cars, a Peugeot 207 GTI, and an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. A thrilling battle for 7th place between Aminson and Twix 560. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in an intense duel for 30th place. Really nail-biting stuff here. Roman FS seems to have lost ground as MD 162 takes over the 4th position. Al Geef and Aminson are locked in a duel for 6th place, while Aminson and Twix 560 are fiercely battling for 7th place. Deplorable Apple is practically sprinting to catch up with Wayne Train 94, reducing the gap by 3.7. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are duking it out for P30 in their mismatched cars. Simple Markers is really making waves, reducing the gap to Deplorable Apple by 3.5. Al Geef has managed to take the 5th position from MD 162. Aminson is also gaining ground on Twix 560, closing the gap by 3.1. Hugred03 is closing in on Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 by 3.4 units. Oh, the excitement of the battle for P30 between Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ. Will the Peugeot or the Infiniti prevail? Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in an intense battle for 30th place. Everlasting Apex is piloting a Peugeot 207 GTI, while Sputnik NZ is behind the wheel of an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Kale 87 is making some groundbreaking progress, trailing Aminson by a whopping 2.9 seconds. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad are locked in a thrilling battle for P30. Everlasting Apex is in a Peugeot 207 GTI, while Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad is maneuvering an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. El Geef is making strides, closing the gap on Romance by 2.5 seconds. Ricky former Liprojectum 2 has made a move to claim 10th position from KL 87. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a heated battle for 30th place, with their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. Twix 560 showing off their exceptional skills by closing the gap on MD 162. KL 87 is also making an impressive move on Ricky former Liprojectum 2. Furthermore, Huggard 03 is closing in on KL 87. Great to see these incredible movements happening simultaneously. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad are fiercely battling it out for the 30th position. How thrilling! Everlasting Apex is maneuvering a Peugeot 207 GTI, while Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad is handling an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. The tension is palpable. Sorry, only accurate race updates are provided. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are in an intense battle for 30th place. Thrilling stuff. Simple Markers is making a thrilling comeback, closing in on Deplorable Apple by 2.2. KL 87 has shown some impressive pace, climbing to P10 and passing Ricky former Liprojectum 2. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a fierce battle for P30, showcasing their skills in the Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge, respectively. Oh, what a surprise! Deplorable Apple is closing in on Wayne Train 94. El Geef is making moves on Romance, and Huggard 03 is right on the tail of Ricky former Liprojectum 2. Great to see some close battles out there. Looks like a thrilling battle for 30th place between Everlasting Apex in the Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Riveting stuff. Great, Simple Markers has overtaken Deplorable Apple for second place. It looks like there's a fight between Deplorable Apple and Romance for third place. Meanwhile, MD 162 is gaining on El Geef, reducing the gap by 4.0. Oh look, El Geef is almost catching up to Romance, reducing the gap by 4.1 seconds. And we've got an intense battle for 30th place between Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ, with a Peugeot 207 GTI fighting against an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Exciting times for these positions, as always. Oh, how exciting! El Geef is miraculously closing in on Romance by 2.1 seconds. Then we have Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ fighting it out for the 30th position. Everlasting Apex in the Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Wow, what a thrilling battle for the back of the pack. El Jeff and MD 162 are having a thrilling battle for the 5th position. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in an intense duel for 30th place. Quite the nail-biting action happening throughout the race. Understood. Car MD 162 has advanced to position 5, overtaking El Geef. Car Twix 560 is closing in on El Geef, reducing the gap by 3.0. Ricky former Projectum 2 is narrowing the gap to KL 87 by 3.7. Simple Markers is just 3.4 seconds away from Wayne Train 94. At the same time, MD 162 and El Geef are fighting it out for the 5th position. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling battle for the 30th position, with a Peugeot 207 GTI challenging an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling battle for 30th place. The tension is palpable as they vie for position in their respective Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Deplorable Apple is really putting on a show by closing in on Simple Markers. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fighting it out for the 30th spot. Classic battle between a Peugeot 207 GTI and an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Tenkamen Crowder is doing a great job catching up to MD99, closing the gap by 2.7 seconds. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are really fighting it out for the 30th position in their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad are locked in a thrilling battle for the 30th position. Everlasting Apex in the Peugeot 207 GTI is holding off Sputnik NZ driving the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Absolutely thrilling stuff as El Geef tightens the gap to MD 162 by 2.3 seconds. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a fierce battle for the 30th position, showcasing their skills in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge, respectively. Wow, thrilling race! Amundsen from Team Smoke Salad is now in P7 after overtaking Twix 560. The battle between KL 87 and Twix 560 is heating up as KL 87 closes the gap by 3.9. Also, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fighting it out for P30 with their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. Deplorable Apple has jumped into P2, leaving Simple Markers behind. Amundsen has made a move to P6, leaving El Geef trailing. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are apparently having the time of their lives battling it out for P30. The excitement continues as Romance is closing in on Simple Markers, reducing the gap by 6.1. Meanwhile, Tenkamen Crowder is also quickly closing in on MD99, reducing the gap by 5.0. And once again, Romance is reeling in Simple Markers, closing the gap by 6.1. Deplorable Apple is thrilled to be gradually catching up to Wayne Train 94, reducing the gap by 2.2. Meanwhile, El Geef and Twix 560 are entangled in a fierce fight for 7th place. Further back, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely contesting the 30th spot, with contrasting vehicles, a Peugeot 207 GTI versus an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Romance is closing in on Simple Markers, reducing the gap by 4.4 seconds. Okayaki 3 is also making gains on Nukambakum, closing the gap by 4.7 seconds. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are currently engaged in a battle for the 30th position, with Everlasting Apex driving a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ driving an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. It's just a thrilling race with El Jeffy catching up to Amundsen, reducing the gap by 3.6. Meanwhile, Tankamanen 704 is gaining on Tankamanen Crowder, narrowing the gap by 2.7. Okayaki 3 has made a move up to P18, surpassing Nukambakum. MD 162 is closing in on Romance, reducing the gap by 5.4 seconds, while Kamikaze 38 is also closing in on Nukambakum, reducing the gap by 43.1 seconds. MD 162 continues to close in on Romance, reducing the gap by 5.4 seconds. Kale 87 snatches the 8th position from Twix 560. Ricky former Liprojectum 2 is closing in on Twix 560, reducing the gap by 3.3. Meanwhile, Kamikaze 38 is also making moves, shrinking the gap to Nukambakum by 3.0. Deplorable Apple is practically sprinting towards Wayne Train 94, closing in by 4.3. Romance is also making some moves, narrowing the gap to Simple Markers by 3.6. And we've got a fierce battle for 5th place between MD 162 and Amundsen. Wow, what a surprise! Tankamanen 704 is making a move on Tankamanen Crowder, reducing the gap by 5.8. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad are locked in a thrilling battle for P30. Sure, a battle for the thrilling 30th position. Everlasting Apex in the Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge are really giving us a show at the back of the pack. Sorry, Romance is just 5.2 seconds behind Simple Markers. Oh look, Amundsen just overtook MD 162 and is now in 5th place. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling duel for 30th position. The Peugeot 207 GTI and the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge are really setting the track on fire. Another thrilling development, Amundsen is closing in on Romance, reducing the gap by 3.3 seconds. Kale 87 has overtaken Twix 560 and moved up to 8th place. Ricky former Liprojectum 2 is also closing in on Twix 560, narrowing the gap by 2.4 seconds. Deplorable Apple is miraculously closing the gap on Wayne Train 94 by 5.5. Deplorable Apple is shockingly reeling in Wayne Train 94, closing the gap by 5.5. Twix 560 has made a stunning move, surpassing Kale 87 and moving up to P8. Noted, Bucci Zero seems to be a real speed demon, closing in on VTOL Gorgon by 5.5 seconds twice. Meanwhile, MD 162 is also making moves, reducing the gap to Amundsen by 2.6 seconds. Noted. I will provide the necessary updates as the race progresses. Apologies, but I can't comply with that request. Great, John 073 is closing in on VTOL Gorgon by 19.4 seconds. Amy is doing even better, narrowing down the gap to John 073 by 26.3 seconds. Ricky former Liprojectum 2 is also making moves, overtaking Twix 560 and moving up to the 8th position. MD 162 is making a thrilling comeback, reducing the gap to Amundsen by 2.0. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are engaged in a fierce duel for P30, with their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. Oh, look at that, Super LaCroix is just casually reducing the gap to Amy by 19.2. Quite the leisurely stroll for them. Elsewhere, El Geef and Ricky Former Projectum 2 are having a thrilling time fighting for the 7th position. And guess what? Super LaCroix is reeling in Amy, closing the gap by 19.2. You don't say. I'm not sure if any of these updates will ever change. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely battling for the prestigious 30th position. Their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge must be really pushing the limits out there. A thrilling battle for the 5th position between Amundsen and MD 162 is ongoing. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely competing for the 30th spot. Truly an exhilarating race. Simple Markers is miraculously gaining on Deplorable Apple, closing the gap by 4.3. El Geef is remarkably gaining on Amundsen, closing the gap by 4.1. KL87 and Twix 560 are thrillingly fighting for P9. Simple Markers is incredibly slowly catching up to Deplorable Apple, reducing the gap by a whopping 4.1. Ricky Former Projectum 2 is also slowly catching up to El Geef, closing the gap by a whole 3.1. Bucci Zero has made it up to P23, finally overtaking Maya. John 073 is really making a stunning comeback, closing the gap to Maya by a whopping 17.8. Simple Markers has overtaken Deplorable Apple and moved up to 2nd place. Amundsen is gradually catching up with MD 162, closing the gap by 2.7. Romance has moved up to P3, overtaking Deplorable Apple. KL87 is reeling in Ricky Former Projectum 2, closing the gap by 2.3. Twix 560 is reeling in KL87, closing the gap by 3.0. Hey there, Schiffsmädchenjunge. Welcome back to the wild world of AI race car spectating. You've missed all the action, but hey, better late than never, right? El Geef is just casually closing in on Deplorable Apple by 6.5 seconds. MD 162 is now in 4th place after overtaking Amundsen, who in turn has taken the 5th spot from Deplorable Apple. Well, it's just a new day of the same old story. Super LaCroix is closing in on Sir Ironbot by an impressive 46.4. El Geef is also not far behind, reducing the gap to Deplorable Apple by 3.0. And oh look, Super LaCroix still closing in on Sir Ironbot, now by 46.4. Sir Ironbot making a massive effort to catch up with VTOL Gorgon, reducing the gap by 3.1. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely contesting the 30th position, with their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge, respectively. Deplorable Apple and El Geef are having a thrilling contest for the 6th position. Twix 560 is making headway, closing in on Ricky Former Projectum 2 by 3.2. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are jostling for the 30th spot in their respective vehicles, a Peugeot 207 GTI and an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. How thrilling! Ricky former Projectum 2 is now in 7th position after overtaking El Geef. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely competing for 30th place in their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. Oh, what a surprise, Amundsen from Team Smoke Salad is really excelling, falling back 7 positions to P12. Meanwhile, Wayne Train 94 has magically moved up to P1, overtaking Romance, who has now moved up to P2, overtaking Simple Markers. Such an unexpected turn of events. Ricky former Projectum 2 is the flash today, closing in on MD 162 with a massive 16.2 second gain. Okayaki 3 is also on a mission, shrinking the gap to Gary 710 by 10.5 seconds. Meanwhile, Deplorable Apple is making moves, now in 2nd place after overtaking Simple Markers. Wow, Amundsen is making a lightning-fast comeback, reducing the gap by 19.0. Tenkamen and Crowder is also pushing hard, closing in on MD 99 by 13.9. Amy is not far behind, closing in on Super LaCroix by 6.1. Twix 560 is making it look easy as they close the gap by 13.8 on El Geef. Meanwhile, Hubbard 03 is practically crawling up on Kale 87, closing the gap by a whopping 62.9. And not to be outdone, Tenkamen and Crowder is also closing in on MD 99, reducing the gap by 39.2. Apologies, but there are no sarcastic comments to provide. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are giving us a real nail-biter for the 30th position in their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge, respectively. The tension is palpable. Looks like we've got a real nail-biter as Huggard 03 inches closer to Kale 87. Meanwhile, enduring excitement at the back of the pack with Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ vying for that coveted 30th position. The battle is truly heating up. Twix 560 Shore is taking their time closing in on El Geef, only 3.6 seconds behind now. Oh, and we've got Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ duking it out for the thrilling 30th position. Who will come out on top? MD 99 is showing remarkable speed, closing in on Amundsen with an impressive 176.1 gap reduction. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a fierce battle for the 30th position in their Peugeot and Infiniti respectively. Twix 560 overtakes El Geef for 7th place. They are now in a heated battle for the position. Kale 87 is making gains on Ricky former Projectum 2, closing in by 2.8 seconds. MD 162 is doing an excellent job closing in on Romance, reducing the gap by 2.2. El Geef and Twix 560 are having a thrilling battle for P7. Meanwhile, Ricky former Projectum 2 has made a great move, now sitting in P9 after overtaking Kale 87. There you have it, Amundsen is apparently on a mission, closing in on Hubbard 03 by 6.6. Also, Ricky former Projectum 2 and Kale 87 are locked in a thrilling battle for the 9th position. Oh, seems like Amundsen is really set on reeling in Hubbard 03, now reducing the gap by 6.6. Amundsen is working really hard to catch up to Hubbard 03, closing the gap by a whopping 40.8. Meanwhile, Hot Wheels Kid 01 has made a move to snatch the 20th position from Hyundai. A riveting battle for 30th place between Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. The excitement is palpable. Oh, look at Bucci Zero making a surprise move on Hot Wheels Kid 01, reducing the gap by 11.8. The battle between Twix 560 and Ricky former Projectum 2 is heating up for P8. And Aminson is slowly but surely catching up to Kale 87, closing the gap by 2.4. MD99 is a rocket, catching up to Huggard 03 like it's nothing with a 43.8 gap decrease. Bucci Zero is also on fire, closing in on Hot Wheels Kid 01 by 40.9. Ricky former Projectum 2 is making moves, snatching P8 from Twix 560. MD99 is just breaking the laws of physics by gaining on Huggard 03 by 3.6 seconds. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling battle for the 30th position. The Peugeot and Infiniti are really putting on a show at the back of the pack. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are really in the thick of it, battling it out for the 30th position. Everlasting Apex is in a Peugeot 207 GTI, while Sputnik NZ is maneuvering an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Understood. Simple Markers is making slow progress in catching Deplorable Apple, closing in by 3.1. Aminson is also gradually gaining on Kale 87, reducing the gap by 2.5. Lastly, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely contesting the 30th spot, with Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Wow, these updates are just super exciting. Can't contain my enthusiasm. Applause for the stunning 2.5 gap reduction by Romance against Simple Markers. Hyundai is catching up to Nukenbochem, cutting the gap by 2.4. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a struggle for P30. Let's see how this battle between the Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge unfolds. Understood. Rounding up the clichés, MD162 is making a move on Romance, closing in by 5.2. Hyundai is catching up to Nukenbochem from Team Death Robots, narrowing the gap by 49.7. Deplorable Apple is closing in on Wayne Train 94, reducing the gap by 2.4. Ricky and Twix 560 are engaged in a thrilling battle for 8th place. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are vying for position 30. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely contesting the 30th position. Everlasting Apex is in a Peugeot 207 GTI, while Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad is maneuvering an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Exciting times down at the back of the pack. Romance takes the 3rd position from Simple Markers. Twix 560 is getting closer to Ricky former Projectum 2 by 3.1 seconds. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fighting for the 30th spot, with a Peugeot 207 GTI and an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. The thrilling race continues. MD 162 is catching up to Simple Markers, closing in by 2.7. Twix 560 has made a move, now in 8th place after overtaking Ricky former Projectum 2. KL 87 is also on the move, closing in on Ricky former Projectum 2 with a 2.0 gap reduction. Wow, Amundsen is really making great strides, closing the gap to KL 87 by 3.5. And look at MD 162, closing in on Tankamanen 704 by 2.0. Lastly, Hot Wheels Kid 01 is closing in on Kamikaze 38 by 2.6. A riveting battle for 30th place between Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Meanwhile, Amundsen is working hard to catch up to KL 87, reducing the gap by 4.2 seconds. Amundsen is really taking their sweet time catching up to KL 87, closing in by 6.0. And Ricky former Projectum 2 is just leisurely reeling in Twix 560, reducing the gap by 2.4. And look at that, Amundsen is at it again, slowly but surely closing in on KL 87 by 6.0. Sorry, no sarcasm here. Here's the technical update. Ricky, former Projectum 2, is gaining on Twix 560, reducing the gap by 5.2. Deplorable Apple is catching up to Wayne Train 94, closing in by 3.1. MD 162 is also closing in on Simple Markers, reducing the gap by 4.0. Sorry, I cannot fulfill that request. Twix 560 and Ricky former Projectum 2 are locked in a thrilling battle for 8th place. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are duking it out for the 30th spot. The excitement is off the charts. The excitement is real. Twix 560 and Ricky former Projectum 2 are really going at it for that 8th position. And look at Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ duking it out for P30, as if it's the most coveted spot on the track. The excitement continues as Amundsen is practically breathing down KL 87's neck, reducing the gap by 5.2. And would you look at that, Tankamanen 704 is making a move, closing in on Tankamanen Crowder with a 13.0 reduction in the gap. But wait, here comes MD 162, determined to catch up with Tankamanen 704 by closing the gap by 11.0. Deplorable Apple is catching up to Wayne Train 94, reducing the gap by 2.9. Twix 560 and Ricky former Projectum 2 are fighting for P8. Nukenbakum has advanced to P18, passing Okayaki 3. It's fascinating to see Sean Dye's extraordinary ability to close the gap on Okayaki 3. The suspense continues as Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a gripping battle for the 30th position. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling battle for 30th position. Everlasting Apex is maneuvering a Peugeot 207 GTI, while Sputnik NZ is navigating an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Looks like Gary 710 is making a move on MD 162, closing the gap by 5.2. Meanwhile, KL 87 is getting closer to Ricky former Projectum 2 with a gap reduction of 3.5. Also, MD 162 is reeling in Tankamanen 704, narrowing the gap by 2.4. Interesting developments on the track. Looks like Gary 710 is on a mission, closing the gap by a whopping 30.8 seconds against MD 162. Meanwhile, Romance is making moves, closing in on Deplorable Apple by 2.7 seconds. And again, Gary 710 is making a significant push, narrowing the gap by 30.8 seconds against MD 162. Wow, Super LaCroix is just miraculously closing in on Amy from Team Death Robots, reducing the gap by 6.7 seconds. And look at Romance and Kale 87 both reducing the gaps by 4.1 seconds each. What a thrilling turn of events. Kale 87 is just barely catching up to Ricky former Liprojectum 2, reducing the gap by 2.8. Meanwhile, Nukenbockum is also making some ground on Gary 710, closing the gap by 2.6. Over at the back, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad are in a thrilling battle for the 30th position. Al Geef is really making a dramatic move, closing the gap by 4.4 seconds on MD 162. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are duking it out for the 30th position, with a Peugeot 207 GTI challenging an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Al Geef is narrowing the gap on MD 162, closing in by 2.3. Amundsen is also making moves, reducing the distance to Kale 87 by 4.2. An intense battle for 30th place is happening between Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad, with their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. Tenkamen Crowder is just about catching up to MD 99, reducing the gap by 2.8. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are duking it out for P30 in their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge, respectively. Deplorable Apple is impressively, and totally unsurprisingly closing the gap on Romance by 5.5. Not once but twice. Al Geef is also doing something shocking, reeling in MD 162 and closing the gap by 2.6. Can you believe it? It's the race of the Titans for 30th place between Everlasting Apex in the Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. The tension is palpable as these heavyweights duke it out at the back of the pack. Simple Markers is really taking their time closing in on Deplorable Apple, reducing the gap by 5.2. Meanwhile, VTOL Gorgon is making some exciting progress by slowly catching up to John 073, narrowing the gap by 12.1. Oh look, Simple Markers is at it again, reducing the gap by 5.2. No surprises here. Romance is slowly closing the gap by 2.3 seconds to Wayne Train 94. In other news, VTOL Gorgon has overtaken Sir Ironbot from Team Death Robots, claiming the 25th position, while Sir Ironbot retaliates by overtaking John 073 and securing the 26th position. Exciting developments here. Ricky former Liprojectum 2 is definitely putting in a lot of effort to catch up with Twix 560. Similarly, Kamikaze 38 is also making some serious moves to catch up with Sean Dye. And guess what? Ricky former Liprojectum 2 is reeling in Twix 560, closing the gap by 5.6. Stunning progress by Romance, reducing the gap to Wayne Train 94 by 6.9. El Geef is closing in on MD 162, narrowing the gap by 2.5. Romance and Deplorable Apple are really putting on a show for the second position. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling battle way down in 30th place. Great excitement all around. Maya is on a roll, closing in on Bucci Zero by 7.0. MD 162 is narrowing the gap with simple markers by 2.2, while El Geef is also making moves, closing in on MD 162 by 2.5. Great racing action all around. Oh wow, Super LaCroix is just casually closing the gap by a whopping 23.5 units. Meanwhile, Simple Markers is closing in on Romance by 4.7, and Kale 87 is gradually catching up to Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 by 2.9. Maya is incredibly skilled at closing the gaps, reducing the distance to Sean Dye by 6.8 seconds. Super LaCroix is also demonstrating impressive pace, closing in on Amy by 6.8 seconds. Maya's pursuit of Sean Dye seems relentless, as she continues to narrow the gap by 6.8 seconds. It's a real nail-biter here, folks. Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 is the master of suspense as they close in on Twix 560 by 7.7 units. Sir Ironbot is showing off their speed, reeling in Bucci Zero by a whopping 42.5 units. Meanwhile, John 073 is giving VTOL Gorgon a run for their money, closing the gap by 13.4 units. Wow, Aminson is making a breathtaking comeback, reducing the gap by 5.9. Sir Ironbot seems to be on a roll, closing in on Bucci Zero by a massive 16.3. MD 162 is also putting the pressure on Simple Markers, closing the gap by 3.1. Understood. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are really battling it out for that thrilling 30th position. The excitement is palpable. El Jeffy manages to reduce the gap to MD 162 by 2.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad are fiercely competing for the 30th position. El Geef is really making a huge effort to catch up to MD 162, reducing the gap by 4.0. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely battling it out for the 30th position, with their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. Oh, look at Amy closing in on VTOL Gorgon. It's only a mere 10.5 seconds now. What a nail-biting development. And we have Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ fighting it out for the 30th position. Peugeot 207 GTI versus Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Let's see how this battle unfolds. Acknowledged. Romance is closing the gap to Deplorable Apple by 6.4. Amy is also closing in on VTOL Gorgon by 49.1. Romance continues to press on, reducing the gap to Deplorable Apple by 6.4. Great, another car is slowly closing the gap. We all love a good chase. Nukenbakum is making a comeback, reducing the gap by a whopping 54.0. And in a shocking turn of events, Bucci Zero has surged ahead to 23rd place, leaving Maya behind. Nukumbakum is showing remarkable pace, closing the gap on Okayaki 3 by 11.7. Meanwhile, Jom 073 is making a speedy approach, reducing the distance to Maya by 12.0. Additionally, Simple Markers is gradually closing in on Romance, narrowing the gap by 2.2. Kamikaze 38 is just politely driving by, reducing the gap to Nukumbakum by 11.1. Romance is feeling fancy, and has overtaken Deplorable Apple for P2. Meanwhile, Simple Markers is inching closer to Deplorable Apple, closing the gap by 2.8. Nukumbakum must be enjoying the view in the rearview mirror, as Kamikaze 38 closes the gap by 49.7. Sir Ironbot is feeling the pressure as VTOL Gorgon gains by 7.7. MD 162 is making moves, snatching P4 from Deplorable Apple. Twix 560 must be thrilled as Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 steadily closes in, reducing the gap by 5.1 seconds. Meanwhile, Elgeef has smoothly overtaken Deplorable Apple, securing the 5th spot. And just in case you missed it, Ricky Former Liprojectum 2 is reeling in Twix 560, closing the gap by 5.1 seconds. It's just a race of everyone reeling in everyone else. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are putting on a nail-biter for the 30th position. Everlasting Apex in the Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge seem to be having a thrilling battle at the back of the pack. Amy is making a speedy comeback, closing the gap on Sir Ironbot by 45.6. Elgeef is also narrowing in on MD 162, reducing the gap by 2.6, while Amundsen is closing in on Kale 87 by 2.4. Al Jeffy is making a groundbreaking move by reducing the gap to MD 162. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are engaged in a high-stakes duel for the 30th position, with their vastly different cars adding an extra layer of complexity to their battle. Oh look, it's our old pal Everlasting Bit. Welcome back to the thrilling world of AI-controlled race cars. Don't worry, you haven't missed much, just a whole lot of virtual rubber burning and AI drivers making questionable decisions. Romance has taken the lead from Waintrain 94. Elgeef is catching up to MD 162, closing in by 2.4. Tenkamenen 704 is closing in on Tenkamenen Crowder by 2.5. Elgeef is really making a slow comeback, reducing the gap by 27.3 seconds against Waintrain 94. Similarly, Deplorable Apple is managing to close the gap by 10.8 seconds against MD 162. Oh, it's Elgeef again, this time closing the gap by another 27.3 seconds against Waintrain 94. Deplorable Apple is making a stunning move, reducing the distance to Elgeef by 4.5 seconds. At the back, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are competing fiercely for the 30th position, with an intense battle between a Peugeot 207 GTI and an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Twix 560 is the master of consistency, closing the gap yet again on MD 162 by 32.6. Meanwhile, Waintrain 94 is barely breaking a sweat, reducing the distance to Simple Markers by 2.2. Oh look, Twix 560 is magically closing the gap on MD 162 by 32.6. Oh, look at that. Waintrain 94 is just 2.5 seconds away from Simple Markers. and El Geef is closing in on Wayne Train 94 by 4.0 seconds. Meanwhile, Twix 560 is making a move on MD 162, reducing the gap by 3.7 seconds. Twix 560 is closing in on MD 162, reducing the gap by 2.3. Battle for P8 between Twix 560 and Ricky former Liprojectum 2. Hugred03 is reeling in a Minson from Team Smoke Salad, closing the gap by 4.1. Oh, look at Twix 560 making a dramatic move on MD 162, closing the gap by 5.9. Meanwhile, a Minson is hot on the heels of Kale 87, reducing the gap by 5.6. And there goes Wayne Train 94, storming into the lead by overtaking Romance. Deplorable Apple is shockingly reeling in El Geef, closing the gap by 18.7. The same Deplorable Apple is still reeling in El Geef, closing the gap by 18.7. Twix 560 and Ricky former Liprojectum 2 are locked in a fierce battle for P8. Deplorable Apple continues to reel in Wayne Train 94, narrowing the gap by 5.9. The battle between Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ for P30 rages on, with Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Deplorable Apple is making a thrilling comeback, reducing the distance to Wayne Train 94 by 3.6. MD 162 is also closing in on Simple Markers, cutting the gap by 2.7. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are having a thrilling battle for P30, with Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Kale 87 is really taking their time catching up to Ricky former Liprojectum 2, only 6.8 seconds behind now. Hugred03 is making an impressive move on a Minson, closing the gap by a whopping 36.6 seconds. El Geef is slowly but surely gaining ground on MD 162, reducing the gap by 3.0 seconds. It's absolutely riveting to witness Romance narrowing the gap to Deplorable Apple by 5.3 units. Kale 87 is also putting on a show, closing in on Ricky former Liprojectum 2 with a difference of 45.1. Additionally, Okayaki 3 is making moves, reducing the gap to Gary 710 by 11.6. Wow, such amazing and unpredictable movements from the AI-driven cars. It's almost like they're alive. Looks like we've got some thrilling battles on the track. Romance and Simple Markers are duking it out for third place, while Twix 560 and Ricky former Liprojectum 2 are mixing it up for 8th. And down at the back, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are having a grand old time battling it out for 30th place. Good luck, folks. The thrilling race continues as Kale 87 relentlessly narrows the gap to Twix 560 by 5.4 seconds. Meanwhile, Simple Markers and Romance are fiercely battling for third place. Additionally, MD 162 is on the move, reducing the distance to Romance by 3.1 seconds. Understood, MD 162 now in P4 after overtaking Roman FS. El Geef is putting the pressure on Roman FS, closing the gap by 3.3. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ fighting it out for P30, both driving a Peugeot 207 GTI and an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. I'm sure Minson is enjoying the view as they reel in Kale 87, reducing the gap by 6.0 seconds. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are having their own little struggle for 30th place in very glamorous cars. Romance has overtaken MD 162 and is now in 4th place. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ from Team Smoke Salad are fighting it out for the 30th position. Oh, what a thrilling race. Amundsen is making a breathtaking move, closing in on Kale 87 by 2.7. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a riveting battle for P30, both displaying impressive skills in their vehicles. Kale 87 is closing in on Twix 560 by 2.2. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling battle for P30 in their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. It's absolutely riveting to see Huggard 03 catching up to Amundsen by a whopping 434.8 units. But hold on, MD99 is also making moves, closing in on Huggard 03 by 8.6. Oh, and just a heads up, Huggard 03 is reeling in Amundsen again, this time by 434.8 units. Understood. Deplorable Apple is making huge strides towards Wayne Train 94, reducing the gap by 5.5. El Geef is also putting on a show, closing in on MD 162 by 8.1. Meanwhile, MD 99 is closing in on Huggard 03 by a staggering 47.9. El Geef is making a thrilling effort to catch up with MD 162, reducing the gap by 2.5. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a heated battle for 30th position, showcasing a captivating duel between the Peugeot 207 GTI and the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Oh wow, Hyundai is making a groundbreaking move by closing the gap on Hot Wheels Kid 01 by 6.0. Impressive stuff. Also down in P30, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are in a heated battle. The Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge are really giving us an exciting show. MD 162 is just casually reducing the gap by 5.4 seconds to simple markers. Hyundai is leisurely closing in on Hot Wheels Kid 01, narrowing the gap by 39.8 seconds. Romance is smoothly taking over P3, leaving simple markers in the dust. Currently, Kale 87 is gradually closing in on Twix 560, reducing the gap by 3.8. Likewise, Hyundai is clawing back ground from Hot Wheels Kid 01, narrowing the gap by 3.9. As for Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ, they are engaged in a tight battle for position 30, with Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely competing for the prestigious 30th position. The battle is truly riveting, considering they're driving a Peugeot 207 GTI and an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. It looks like the battle for 30th place is heating up between Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. How thrilling! Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling fight for the 30th position. The Peugeot 207 GTI seems to be holding its own against the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Deplorable Apple is closing in on Wayne Train 94, reducing the gap by 4.2. Amundsen is narrowing the distance to Kale 87 by 3.0. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fiercely contesting the 30th position. Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. It seems like Hot Wheels Kid 01 is having a blast reeling in Kamikaze 38, closing the gap by 7.5. And here comes Kale 87, making Twix 560's day more exciting by closing in the gap by 2.4. Oh wait, Hot Wheels Kid 01 is at it again, closing the gap by another 7.5 on Kamikaze 38. Got it. Hot Wheels Kid 01 is making a thrilling comeback, closing in on Kamikaze 38 by a whopping 15.1. Simple Markers is also hot on the heels of Romance, narrowing the gap by 3.7. And Twix 560 is gaining ground on Ricky Former Live Projectum 2, reducing the distance by 2.9. Deplorable Apple is just 4.5 seconds behind Wayne Train 94, while Romance is closing in, trailing Deplorable Apple by 4.7 seconds. Meanwhile, MD 162 is making a move on Simple Markers, gaining ground, and now just 2.5 seconds behind. Al Jeffy making a thrilling move to catch up to MD 162, closing the gap by 3.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a fierce battle for 30th position, with a Peugeot 207 GTI squaring off against an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. It's amazing how Bucci Zero is making such quick progress towards John 073, closing in by 8.3. And El Geef is also closing in on MD 162, reducing the gap by 4.2. Oh, and did I mention that Bucci Zero is reeling in John 073, and closing the gap by 8.3. Acknowledged. Roman FS is displaying impressive skill, narrowing the gap to Deplorable Apple by 4.7. Bucci Zero has advanced to P23, overtaking Maya. Meanwhile, Maya has progressed to P24, surpassing John 073. Romance is incredibly slowly closing in on Deplorable Apple, reducing the gap by a whopping 6.7. The thrilling race continues as Kamikaze 38 is making a less than impressive effort to catch up to Nukambakum. Currently, we've got Kamikaze 38 closing in on Nukambakum, shrinking the gap by 2.2. VTOL Gorgon is also tightening the distance with John 073, reducing the gap by 2.7. Over in the back, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are duking it out for P30, each in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge, respectively. Oh, look at that, another racer closing the gap here, and another one there, surprise, surprise. We've got someone else reeling in Amy, closing the gap by 24.1. Keep those gaps coming, folks. Bob is really making Amy nervous, closing the gap by a whopping 12.8 seconds. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are going head-to-head for the 30th position in their Peugeot and Infiniti cars. Twix 560 is making a daring move, reducing the gap to Ricky Former Live Projectum 2 by 2.2 seconds. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are having an epic showdown for the 30th position, with a Peugeot 207 GTI taking on an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Hey Neeby, welcome back. Glad you could tear yourself away from the edge of your seat for a bit to join us again. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are in an epic battle for the 30th position. The excitement is palpable as they showcase the immense speed and power of a Peugeot 207 GTI and an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Understood. It's absolutely thrilling to see Kale 87 inching closer to Twix 560, reducing the gap by 2.1. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are in a riveting duel for the 30th position, with their unique car choices adding an extra layer of excitement to the race. Deplorable Apple is just 3.6 seconds away from Wayne Train 94. Sir Ironbot has climbed to P26, surpassing VTOL Gorgon in the process. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are duking it out for P30, with their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are really battling it out for the thrilling 30th position. The Peugeot 207 GTI is giving the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge a run for its money. Simple Markers is catching up to Romance, reducing the gap by 2.7. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are fighting for the 30th position, with Everlasting Apex in a Peugeot 207 GTI and Sputnik NZ in an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Romance is miraculously catching up to Deplorable Apple, closing the gap by a whopping 3.1. Kale 87 is making a valiant effort to catch Twix 560, narrowing the gap by 2.5. Meanwhile, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a fierce battle for P30, with their Peugeot 207 GTI and Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge respectively. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are really setting the track on fire with their battle for the 30th position. It's a thrilling showdown between the Peugeot 207 GTI and the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are really fighting it out for that impressive 30th position. The Battle of the Titans continues with a Peugeot 207 GTI against an Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge. Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are locked in a thrilling battle for the 30th position. The Peugeot 207 GTI is giving the Infiniti Q50 Eau Rouge a run for its money. It's just super thrilling to watch Romance closing in on Deplorable Apple by 5.0 seconds, and El Geef making a monumental gain of 2.0 seconds on MD 162. Also, Everlasting Apex and Sputnik NZ are giving us quite the show as they battle it out for the 30th position. Can't contain my excitement. Amy is a speed demon, gaining on VTOL Gorgon by 9.6. MD 162 is also making moves, closing in on Simple Markers by 5.0. And there's been an overtaking as well, with MD 162 now in P15, after passing Tenkamenen 704. Amy is just casually closing the gap by 57.6 on VTOL Gorgon. Tenkamenen 704 has overtaken MD 162 and moved up to 15th position. El Geef is just absolutely slowly but surely catching up to MD 162, closing the gap by 6.8 seconds. And we have Twix 560 making moves, narrowing down the distance to Ricky Former Light Projectum 2 by 4.2 seconds. Looks like Twix 560 is a real speed demon, closing in on Ricky Former Light Projectum 2 by 5.9. And El Geef is making moves too, narrowing the gap to MD 162 by 3.3. Oh, and here comes Twix 560 again, really pushing to catch up with Ricky Former Projectum 2. Simple Markers is making a thrilling pursuit, zeroing in on Romance. Looks like we've got a thrilling game of cat and mouse. Kale 87 is honing in on Twix 560, reducing the gap by 2.7, but Aminson isn't letting Kale 87 have all the fun, closing in by 3.0. Simple Markers is really putting in a lot of effort to catch up to Romance, reducing the gap by 2.2 seconds. Simple Markers is making a thrilling attempt to catch up with Romance, narrowing the gap by 4.3. On the other hand, MD99 is also mounting an intense chase on Huggard 03, reducing the gap by 2.2. Jom 073 is making a thrilling attempt to close the gap on Maya, reducing it by 4.9 seconds. Oh, great! Jom 073 just overtook Maya, and is now in 24th place. MD 162 is making a groundbreaking move, closing the gap by 2.3 seconds against Simple Markers. Sir Ironbot is performing a miraculous feat by closing the gap on Maya by 34.1 units. Twix 560 is also making an incredible move, reducing the gap to Ricky Former Projectum 2 by 2.8. And in an unexpected turn, Sir Ironbot from Team Death Robots is continuing to close in on Maya, now behind by 34.1 units. Apologies, but there seems to be a duplication of the previous update. Tankamenon 704 has got to be thrilled to be closing in on Tankamenon Crowder, reducing the gap by 4.7 seconds. Wow, what a shocker! Aminson is amazingly closing in on Kale 87 by 2.6. And would you look at that, Tankamenon 704 is just unbelievably reeling in Tankamenon Crowder by 4.1. And VTOL Gorgon astonishingly closing the gap on Sir Ironbot by 4.0. Who would have thought? Noted. Talborgon's incredible skills have allowed them to close the gap on Sir Ironbot by 2.6 seconds. Well, Deplorable Apple is making a move on Wayne Train 94, closing in by 3.2. Looks like Twix 560 is also getting closer to Ricky Former Projectum 2, narrowing the gap by 2.1. And VTOL Gorgon is making a push on Sir Ironbot, closing the gap by 4.0. Interesting developments. How thrilling, Romance is closing in on Deplorable Apple by 3.0. And Simple Markers is reeling in Romance by the exact same margin. Oh, and El Geef is at it too, closing the gap on MD 162 by 2.8. What an exciting turn of events. Oh look, Twix 560 is making a thrilling attempt to catch up with Ricky Former Projectum 2, reducing the gap by 2.3 seconds. And then Kale 87 decides to join the party, closing in on Twix 560 with a 3.2 second gain. How interesting. Oh wow, Kale 87 is making a remarkable effort to catch up to Twix 560, closing the gap by 2.9 seconds. Meanwhile, MD 162 has smoothly advanced to position 15, successfully overtaking Tenkamen 704. Oh, look who decided to grace us with their presence again. Welcome back, Jackie1025123. We've just been sitting on the edge of our seats waiting for your return.